Hi guys, welcome back. I hope everyone is doing great. So in today's video, I want to talk about some recent fragrance discoveries, some fragrances that I've added to my collection as we've come out of summer, entering the autumn cooler season. I think all of these are great for the fall. Some of them I actually picked up during the summer from discounters, some of them just by shopping around and getting my nose on various fragrances. But I would consider these discoveries, successful purchases, and fragrances that I'm really enjoying or look forward to getting to know better and enjoying. So let's start with a fragrance from the House of Prada, and this is from the Olfactories line. So this is another designer brand releasing fragrances in an exclusive line, meant to be more exclusive, and they're more expensive than the fragrances in the main line of the House of Prada. And this one is an amber fragrance. It's called Marienbad. And to be honest, I blind bought this. And it was a little risky because it is an amber with a note of vanilla, and I was a little bit concerned that it might be too sweet, maybe too mass appealing, and not the type of amber that I enjoy. Now, I love ambery fragrances. I have a number of amber fragrances in my collection. Ambers can be taken in all different directions. Here, it's taken in a vintage direction. It hints at something like a vintage Shalimar. So I read about the fragrance and watched a few reviews, and then I took a chance and I purchased it. And I think it's a beautiful, beautiful fragrance. I'm so happy to have this in my collection. What you have here is an amber with incense and vanilla and styrax. It's not too sweet, it's not too gloopy, it's not too rich and syrupy. It's a leathery, textured fragrance. It has a hint of smokiness, and I feel like the leathery component in here is almost a little bit oily. It's almost a tiny bit smoky, but not too smoky. And you have the richness from the amber, and of course, you have the vanillic components, and that's why it hints at something like a vintage Shalimar. But again, it's not too sweet, it's not a sugary vanilla, it's not a synthetic smelling fragrance. I have it here on my arm. I'm wearing this as my scent of the day. I just really, really like this. I think it's a beautiful powdery fragrance as well. The vanilla is a little bit powdery, and the texture from the leather is very interesting touch in the fragrance. And then you have the amber accord, so at the end of the day, it's an amber. So it's not exactly like vintage Shalimar. I'm not saying that it's a dupe for vintage Shalimar, but if you like that sort of scent profile, this is definitely something to get your nose on. I'm quite impressed with the fragrance and surprised, because when I purchased it, I wasn't sure what to expect, and this exceeded my expectations by a lot. So that is Marienbad by the House of Prada. So there are a few amber fragrances in here. So the next one is also a designer fragrance from the House of Dolce and Gabbana, and this is in the Velvet collection. Again, an exclusive collection within the Dolce and Gabbana line of fragrances. So the Velvet collection are packaged in bottles that look like this. And this one is Velvet Amber Sun. So all of the fragrances have the word velvet in the title. This is the only one that I've gotten my nose on from this house. It popped up at a very, very great price on a discounter, and I did blind buy this one as well. And this is a wonderful amber fragrance. Very, very different from Marienbad though. This one is also different from other ambers in my collection. It takes an amber fragrance, an amber scent profile in a little bit of a darker direction, but I think what's different here is the woody components, the woody aspects in the base. So in the opening, it's a rich amber, it's a spiced amber, it's very warm, it's very resinous, and it's definitely cozy, and it feels maybe a little bit rich and thick and syrupy. But as the fragrance dries down, I feel like it loses the syrupy nature, because I feel like the woods come in. There's sandalwood, there's oud in the base. It's not an oudy fragrance, but you do get something a little bit dusty in the dry down. And although it's still an amber scent profile all the way to the dry down, I feel like when the woods come in, it's more of a dusty, ambery sort of experience. And although I'm describing it as a darker, richer amber fragrance, it's not too dark. It's not too rich. I feel like it's wearable. But if you're into sort of fresh fragrances and light wearing fragrances and clean fragrances, then this is definitely something to get your nose on and test and not blind by, because it is definitely a rich scent profile, and it definitely does take amber into a little bit of a darker direction, but not as dark as something like Ranier's Ambre Loup, which takes the amber scent profile into a more oody, darker direction. The oud in there, I think, is a little bit more prominent, and that fragrance is really thick and rich, and it might be challenging for some people to wear. This one is not as rich and dark as that one, but it is going to be something darker and richer and more full-bodied than something like Grand Soir from Maison Francis Kurkdjian. That one I feel is an easy vanillic amber fragrance. It's a little bit more mass appealing, easy to wear. This one is definitely richer, more resinous. It's definitely more spiced and more full-bodied and a little bit darker than that fragrance. So if you like amber fragrances that are rich and maybe a little smoky and spiced, warm and cozy as the weather gets colder, you might want to get your nose on this one. I think I'm going to enjoy this one. I think it's a perfect addition to my collection because I have ambers that go in different directions, and this one, because in the dry down has those woody components and goes a little bit powdery, I feel like it fits right in, and it's a little bit different from the others that I have. So that is Velvet Amber Sun. Okay, up next is another amber. I promise it's the last amber in this lineup of 6 fragrances. This is from the house of Maitre Parfum at Gantier. This is Ambre Precieux Ultime. It's such a great color. I love the bottle. I like the packaging. And these big gems on the caps are really quite interesting, maybe a little gaudy for my taste, but there is something vintage-like about the packaging, and there is something very classic about the house of Maitre Parfum at Gantier in general. I really enjoy the fragrances, and when I received this one, I got 3 or 4 really great size samples from ZGO Perfumery, so I was really quite impressed, and I was able to get my nose on some other fragrances, and I have 2 on my wish list from this house. Now, I owned Ambre Precieux, just the regular Ambre Precieux, and I had some samples of Ultime and one of the other flankers, and I ended up selling Ambre Precieux to purchase Ambre Ultime. Now, Ambre Ultime is a more intense version. This takes amber into a powdery direction. This one is a little bit more sweet than the Dolce & Gabbana Velvet Amber Sun, but the sweetness is not cloying, it's not sugary, and it's not disturbing. It's an ambery sweetness. It's a rich fragrance. And like I said, it takes amber into a powdery direction. So I feel like you have to like powdery fragrances to enjoy this one. And although this one has lavender at the top and there's another note, I'm not sure if it's myrtle, that is aromatic like Ambre Precieux, because this one is so resinous and balsamic and it's a little bit richer and more round and more full-bodied, I don't notice the aromatic components as much as I do in Ambre Precieux. So I felt like that fragrance pulled a little bit masculine for me, and this one doesn't do that. This one, it is richer and a little bit more intense, but it definitely doesn't give me that aromatic, masculine feel that I got with the other fragrance, the Ambre Precieux. It is absolutely stunning. It's a cashmere blanket. You have Tolu balsam, Peru balsam, it's ambery, it's resinous, there's labdanum, there's ambergris in here. Yes, at the top there's lavender and myrtle, but it's not too aromatic. It's powdery with a sweetness that comes from coumarin, which is like tonka bean, so it's a little bit warm, and that goes powdery as well. And the vanilla, but again, nothing synthetic or sugary smelling about this fragrance. It's really cozy. And even though it's opulent, I would consider this an opulent amber fragrance. It's not dark. So it's not taking amber into a dark direction. So if you like ambers and you like powdery fragrances, I would recommend trying this one. I like the Ultime a little bit better as a woman wearing this than Ambre Precieux, because I feel like that one comes off a little bit aromatic. So that is Ambre Precieux Ultime. Now, speaking of powdery fragrances, the next one is another powdery fragrance. This is actually baby powder in a bottle. This is Teint Neige by the house of Lorenzo Villoresi, and this is the EDP. There is an EDT, but this is a 50 ml of the EDP, and this is baby powder in a bottle. And I have been dying to get my nose on this fragrance. I love powdery fragrances. I like the idea of baby powder. I own Suavissima from the house of Profumum Roma. This one is very, very similar to that one, maybe even a little bit redundant. And this is also compared to Van Cleef & Arpels Musc de Soie, which is a fragrance that I recently spoke about in one of my recent videos. I think that's a 2025 release from the house, but this one is done better. I like this one and Suavissima more than I like Musc de Soie. I feel like that fragrance has something a little bit off-putting. This one is rounder. This one is smoother, and I'm not sure if it's the neroli in that fragrance. There's something that's contrasting the baby powder that I feel doesn't fit the scent profile. It sticks out, and I just don't enjoy it as much as Suavissima and as much as this one. Now, this is baby powder in a bottle. There's really not much more to say. It's clean, it's smooth, it's powdery, it's a musk, but it's a fluffy musk, clouds like a marshmallow. There are florals in here, and there's a sweetness that sort of blends right in, nothing too sweet. This is all about being clean and smelling like baby powder, but in like a cloud-like, fluffy, musky way, but not a translucent fragrance, not a transparent, musky fragrance. If you like the idea of baby powder, try this one. I'm not sure what the EDT is like, but this one is really great. And it is a little bit redundant to my bottle of Suavissima, I will admit. So I'm glad that I just got the 50 ml as opposed to the larger size. So that's Teint Neige. Now the next one is from the house of Maison Violet, and this is Sketch. Now I spoke about this when I was sampling this fragrance. I had a decant, and I wasn't interested in getting a full bottle when I was speaking about it in that video, but I have since continued to wear it, and I ended up with a full bottle. Now there is a little bit of a backstory to this fragrance. So these fragrances were packaged in different style bottles originally, and then they were repackaged into this style. And I own one of the fragrances in the old packaging, and I purchased on the resale market a bottle of Sketch in the old packaging, and I think they're beautiful. I prefer those bottles over this style, which is simple. Those are a little bit more of a vintage style bottle, and I like them better. So I purchased Sketch in the original style bottle, and the package has been lost. It's been lost since the end of August, and I haven't been reimbursed. I'm not sure if it will show up, and I was really upset. And I kept wearing the decant, and it's a beautiful fragrance. So I went ahead and I purchased on the resale market, rather than pay full price, a bottle of Sketch, but without the cap. So when I received it with this round cap, which looks quite lovely, But I don't think this is the cap that belongs on this bottle. If you look online, these fragrances have just a simple gold cap. It's not this round cap, but this one fits perfectly. And so maybe the seller had an extra cap and put it on the bottle to be nice. So I do now have a cap, but I don't think this is the cap that actually belongs on this packaging. So speaking of the fragrance itself, it's a great fragrance. The perfumer behind this fragrance is Nathalie Larson. I feel like I do like a lot of her fragrances, and I feel like she has quite the following. So Sketch opens very differently from the way it dries down, and it's what I sort of criticized about the fragrance. So what you get in the opening is a soft patchouli. And I say soft because although you get a little bit of that soiliness from patchouli and maybe a little bit of the earthiness, it's not too dark. It's not chocolatey. It's not a chocolatey patchouli. It's a spiced patchouli from the cinnamon and the nutmeg. And then as the fragrance dries down, I feel like the tonka bean in here outweighs the patchouli. And it's all about this powdery, warm tonka bean with the earthiness of the patchouli as a hint in the fragrance. And like I said in the video when I was speaking about this, I felt like the tonka bean took over in the dry down. So I would not call this a patchouli fragrance, and maybe that's why I was a little bit disappointed. In the context of a patchouli fragrance, maybe this one turns out not to really be a patchouli fragrance, and that's what I was trying to convey. But as I wore the fragrance, I realized whether or not you call it a patchouli fragrance, it's a beautiful fragrance. I really enjoy wearing this. The performance is really pretty nice. It's on my skin for 7-8 hours. I wore this as my scent of the day to work a few times, and I find it warm. I find it very powdery. You have to like a powdery fragrance, and I find it very tonka bean prominent. Tonka bean fragrance that's brought to a sort of earthy direction with the patchouli. So the patchouli brings the tonka bean away from a straight up sweet tonka bean nutty fragrance. It's a little more earthy, if that makes sense. And the patchouli takes a backseat to the powdery, sort of cozy tonka bean. It's a nice fragrance. It's a beautiful fragrance. It's a cozy fragrance. It's another fragrance that I would describe as a cashmere sweater. I'm imagining a soft, light cream color, like a spring cashmere. Really, really nice, powdery. It's a very powdery fragrance. If you like powdery fragrances, then you might want to try this one. I would like to try Un Air d'Apogée. I think that one is a tobacco fragrance, but again, it's described as soft. It's a soft take. I've never smelled that one. And this one is really nice and cozy. So that's Sketch by the house of Maison Villoresi. So the last one in this lineup of 6, a recent discovery that I just happened to stumble upon when I was getting my nose on other fragrances during one of my trips to the department store Printemps, is this fragrance called Holy Stick from the house of Chapel Factory. I like the packaging. It's quite interesting with this big black cap. I did not know about the house of Chapel Factory, and I was just smelling various fragrances, and I was attracted maybe to the packaging, and there were about 6 fragrances out on display, and the sales associate pointed me to one of their other fragrances, one of their best sellers. I can't remember the name, I'm blanking, but I feel like I remember that fragrance being green, and I would definitely revisit. It was nice. I like green fragrances. But for some reason, I was attracted to this one, Holy Stick. And the name, I guess, is quite fitting. So the way I would describe Holy Stick is an incense, ambery, woody fragrance. So I was never really someone who loved incense fragrances. I've only recently started to like incense fragrances, and I spoke about the incense fragrance from Diptyque, L'Autois. That is the only one of all of the incense fragrances that I have gotten my nose on thus far that I feel is a little bit challenging, although I enjoy it and I have no plans of ever selling that fragrance. I find it sort of soothing and calming and almost meditative, and I do like to wear it on certain nights when I'm winding down. So this incense fragrance is nothing like that fragrance. This is for those that maybe are new to incense, or for those who don't want a challenging incense. It's a soft, clean incense that is also ambery and also has woody components with a prominent Palo Santo note in here. So the fragrance as a whole is a light wearing fragrance. It's airy. It's an airy take on incense, amber, and woods. So I feel like the incense and the ambery aspects sort of swirl around in the air, if that makes sense. And the woody components are at the base in the fragrance, and the Palo Santo is not, although it's prominent, it's not too strong. I'm not really crazy about Palo Santo in fragrances. There is something maybe a little bit smoky about Palo Santo. So there is definitely something meditative about this fragrance. There is definitely something that for me makes this fragrance calming and grounding, and it's not too strong. So it's a nice light wearing incense. It's not a strong incense. It's not a strong amber. Nothing comes at you. Like I said, it feels like the notes are sort of swirling around in the air. And even though you get the impression when you spray it on skin that it's light and you might feel that you can't detect it, this I was getting wafts of coming off my skin throughout the day. So I would say that I got a nice 5 to 6 hours, which for me is a nice amount of time to detect a fragrance. So I was watching someone review fragrances who kept saying that the performance wasn't that great, and then kept saying 7 to 8 hours. Now, for me, 7 to 8 hours is fantastic. So when I say performance is not that great, I refer to fragrances that are sort of disappearing after about 2 hours. And I do have fragrances that I can't really detect after a few hours. It's a little disappointing because some of them are so beautiful. And I'm not looking for beast mode. So for me, 4, 5 hours, 6 hours, I think is fantastic. So this one was a surprise because I left the house feeling like I couldn't smell it on myself. And while I was at work, I was getting hints. So yes, it's an incense, it's woody, and it's ambery, but it's light wearing. It's nice. It's a really nice incense fragrance. If you like incense and you like the idea of Palo Santo coming through, the woody aspects with ambery components in the backdrop, you should give this one a try. This is Holy Stick, and that is the last of the 6 discoveries. So thank you so much for watching, guys. Let me know in the comments if you guys are familiar with any of these. As always, thank you so much for watching, your support, and your comments. Until next time, bye guys.